Hi, everybody. I'm Laura Davis, and I'm here today to talk about writing prompts, why they're valuable. Every week, I will be sending you a writing prompt on the writer's journey, and today I wanted to give you a little bit of instruction about what I feel are the best strategies, best practices for responding to writing prompts. The benefits, first, I want to say about doing this kind of writing is that it helps you understand what you are thinking, feeling, and going through at any particular moment in time. I find it the best way to do a deep dive check-in with myself. And it enables you, especially when you're upset or you're struggling with something, feeling anxious or anything that's hard, or where you're immersed in repetitive thoughts, anything like that, is that when you write and you do writing practice, it gives you like a little bit of just distance and perspective where you step back from your own experience and you're looking at yourself having that experience. And it just gives you that little bit of a cushion of distance that can be really helpful for getting perspective. It enables you to see yourself and to understand yourself and to have more and deeper compassion for what you're experiencing. And the other thing is, we're living in I don't really want to say remarkable, we're living in a unprecedented, I mean, that word is so overused. We're living in this incredibly unprecedented, difficult, historical time. And your writing will leave behind a written record of what your experience was during this time, both as a historical record, as a record for your children, grandchildren, or any descendants you might have, and also for yourself, because down the line you may decide you want to write about this time, and all the writing you do day by day by day will give you a rich source of source material that you could draw on later, because you won't remember what it was really like. So writing practice, the way I'm teaching it, was developed by Natalie Goldberg in her, initially in her book, Writing Down the Bones, which came out, I think, in 1987. She and I had books come out the same year or about the same time. And I have, I studied with Natalie. She's a friend of mine, and it became such a basic practice that I have done for decades now. I think many people think that writing practice or writing to prompts is something for beginners, but I find it incredibly valuable both in my process for writing things I might publish and also personally as a human being, to ground me. It's a very important practice in my life. So these, and I think one of the mistakes writers make is that they write and edit simultaneously. When you're writing and then you're editing and you're trying to figure out what the right word or phrase is, it keeps you from getting down to the deepest material. And so for me, writing practice is a way to mine the depths. So if that's something that interests you, or if you want to get below the mental chatter, or the top layer of what you're aware of into the deeper subconscious, into the deeper belly of your life experience, writing practice is a very powerful tool for that, simple and effective. So here are the basic rules of writing practice. The first is that you keep your hand moving. So, I'll give you a prompt, or you sit down with the prompt I give, and you just go for the very first thing that you flash on, the very first thing that occurs to you, even if it's nonsensical or incorrect or embarrassing or seems like it's off the subject. Just whatever you first think about, just start writing there. And then you set a timer and you write for a set amount of time. And, in my classes, we often write for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, but even 10 minutes or 15 minutes is plenty actually to get really deeply engaged with a writing prompt. So, if you did this practice 15 minutes a day or 15 minutes every other day, you would actually build up a tremendous body of work if you just kept at it. One of my favorite rules that comes directly from Natalie is you are free to write the worst crap in America, or in Mexico, or in Canada, or in England, or in Jordan or wherever you happen to be. This is not performative. And it's not about, did I write a better piece than I did the last time? Or, oh, this one is really good and this one was really bad. And I really like this and I really don't like this. No, it's a practice, like a meditation practice, like a yoga practice. You write, whatever comes out, that's what came out that time. And then you write again the next time. And you just keep building the muscle. And one of the reasons I really like writing to prompts, if you take it as a discipline, is that you can write to anything. You're not just trying to come up with a topic or only writing on the 10 things that you're comfortable writing about. You get to the point where you become nimble and able to write about anything. Because we're trying to get rid of the editor and not edit as we write, you don't think about things like punctuation, grammar, syntax, or spelling. And then you don't cross out. If you're crossing out, or if you're on a laptop and you're deleting what you're writing, you are editing. So you just move forward and you do not look back. And go for the jugular. And what that means is don't hold back saying the hard things. Like if something painful, if something difficult, if a difficult memory comes up, if something hard arises in your writing or something embarrassing, just put it on the page. So this is about really going for the deepest material and just not censoring what comes out. Just put it down on the page. And don't hold back anything for later. Just put it down now. Lose control basically means say what you need to say, not what you think you should say. And don't let anyone be sitting on your shoulder, telling you in your head, this is in your mind, you can't say that about mom, or that didn't really happen, or I don't remember it that way, or how could you think that? All those critics, all those judges that are keeping you from writing, just banish them. This is your space. This is your writing. This is your notebook, and you get to say anything you want in it. There's a few things that I love to teach my students about phrases that are really helpful if you get stuck. If you feel like, I'm just writing the same crap over and over again, or, I'm just perseverating on this thing that I keep writing about week after week after week after week. These are some things that will help you if you feel like you're not able to drop down into a deeper space. And these are lines that you could insert in your writing at any time. Just take one of these, put it in your writing, and basically it is your conscious mind prompting your subconscious mind and saying, go for it. So these are the lines that I have found super effective. One is, here's the real truth. Here's the real truth. Like I'm saying all this bullshit, I'm saying all this stuff. This is the story I've repeated over and over again, but here's the real truth. Second one is, who am I kidding anyway? And that's really saying to yourself, cut the bullshit and tell the real truth. Don't try to make, especially if you're writing memoir, don't try to make yourself look good or anyone else look good. Just tell the real truth. Who am I kidding anyway? Another one that's super effective is, here's the part I never told anyone before. Because we often, when we tell stories about our lives, we often do have, it's almost like a groove in a record, and it just keeps going around and around. And, you could almost push a play on a tape, and the same story would come out basically the same way. So here's the part I never told anyone before is really an invitation to see that story differently, to dig in deeper, to get to the story underneath the story, underneath the story, underneath the story. Like, what is the real truth? Another one, sometimes, one thing I like to stress to my students is that just because I give you a prompt doesn't mean you need to write to it. Sometimes, you may be sitting down, you may get my prompt in the mail, and you may decide, you're going to write every week at a certain time, and you may feel at that moment there's something else that's pressing that needs to come out, that you really, really need to say, and always go with what's immediate. If there's something you need to rant about, if there's something you need to express, if there's something you need to say, just go ahead and say it and ignore the prompt. Save it for another day. And the last one is, I don't want to write about X. What I really want to write about is Y. Again, what is it that is pressing to come out, and use that. So a few more suggestions. One is, don't feel like the writing has to be linear, that you're going to tell a story with a beginning, middle, and end, or that you have to get to the end. You may start here and then go over here and then go over here and then go back in time and then go into the future and then go to something completely different, and allow yourself to follow your mind where it takes you. Sometimes those segues and those ways your mind leaps can be very instructive and really, really interesting. So it's like you're holding the reins, but hold them loosely. A second thing is that you may find yourself writing about the same thing over and over again. And this has certainly been the case in my writing life of, 40 plus years. When I was in my 20s, I spent late 20s, early 30s, I was writing about nothing but sexual abuse, because that's what I was dealing with. I was healing from the sexual abuse I'd experienced as a child, and it was filling my consciousness, my body, my awareness, and it's all I wrote about. It's all I thought about. It was everything. And then I got to a point where, like now I would say it's part of the fabric of the cloth that shaped me, but I don't think about it and I never write about it, or barely. It's just not in my consciousness. So at that time, I had that obsession. Years later, when I was a new mother, I was obsessed with parenting and learning how to be a parent and children, and I wrote about that extensively, over and over and over again. I'm a cancer survivor, so I had cancer 18 years ago, and the year that I was in my intensive cancer treatment, I had a cancer blog, and every day, probably multiple times a day, I wrote about the experience of having cancer and chemotherapy and illness and facing mortality and thinking about death, and that's what I wrote about then. I had another period in my life where I was trying to reconcile with my mother, with whom I had been deeply estranged. And that's what I wrote about. I wrote about the process of reconciliation. I wrote more about her than anyone else in my entire life, including a whole memoir, about the resolution of my relationship with her. So she has been an obsession with me all my life. I think I'm done, I don't think I have any more to say about her. I felt totally at peace with the whole situation. And lately I've been writing a lot about what is happening in our country and our world, and the incredible danger and risk we are in, and what it takes to find my own courage, and how to hold grief, incredible grief, and also stay committed to joy. So that's what I'm writing about now. That is my current obsession. So don't be afraid of your obsessions. They often have our deepest, most important material, and don't be afraid to mine them and to go fully into them. I'm thinking of a student I had years ago. She's now 96, and I think she was in her late 70s, early 80s then, and her husband had just died. She was a new widow after like a 50-something year marriage. And for weeks, this was in a weekly writing class that I was writing in Santa Cruz, California, in person. She would come every week and she would write about the end of her husband's life, like the last minutes, the last hours, how he died. And then as the weeks and months went by, she started writing about their relationship when he was younger, like a little bit, when he was just sick and not dying. And eventually she was writing about when they met. But over 2 years, that's all she wrote about. She was processing her grief in that class. And all that writing ended up in a book she wrote called The Widow's Journey. It was really fruitful. She's now publishing her third book at 96. And, and she's now writing about aging. That's what she's thinking about. So that's what her writing is about. And I can't wait to read the draft of the new book. So A couple other things. Be kind to yourself. If you don't do it right, have compassion for yourself. There's no right way to do writing practice. And one of the things that I value very much, and when I teach in person or online, is people read their work out loud. I think it's really important to be witnessed. Something very different happens when we speak our words out loud than when they just fester in our notebooks. So, if you're getting these prompts and working on them at home, then you don't have someone there to read to. You don't have a group to read to, but you can read out loud to yourself. And I always do this. It's really an important part of my process as a writer and as an author, is to read my work out loud, because when I read it aloud first, just if it's a memoir piece, I'm really feeling the impact of what I've written in a way I never would if I just had it on the page. There's something about saying it out loud that is another level of truth-telling. And as a working writer, when I read things out loud, that's a big part of my editorial process as well, is I have to hear it. I could hear the repetition. I could hear the words that clunk. I could hear the things that don't work, and where I stumble when I'm reading is often where there's a mistake on the page, something that needs to be fixed. So I encourage you very much, after you've written, to read out loud, even if it's just to yourself. And if you have a safe, trusted person that you can read to, then that's excellent as well. But don't just read to anyone, because not everyone is equipped to receive your writing with respect, with confidentiality, and with the awe that it deserves. So anyway, good luck with your practice. And I encourage you writing a post right now, which is about how to stay safe emotionally when writing about hard stuff. So please look for that post. I think it's really important, if you're writing on your own, to know how to take care of yourself, so that writing remains a really positive healing activity, and that it isn't too re-triggering or re-traumatizing, especially when writing about hard things or trauma. Okay, everybody, thanks for being with me today, and I look forward to more in the future.